So we just got in our EP3 Civic electronic power steering rack for our RSX project. A little bit of background on the steering rack. So the 7th gen Civic and the RSX share a similar steering rack layout inside the car. Basically this rack sits right behind the engine up against the firewall. The big difference really is the fact that the EP3 and the Civic Hybrid have electronic power steering powered by this motor, while the RSX and other models of Civic have a hydraulic system. So you would have a series of hoses coming out and pump driven by the accessory belts on your engine. We decided to go with this rack because we wanted to eliminate a lot of fluids from the car, get into an accident or just random leaks, and it really cleans up the engine bay. There's a couple hard lines that get eliminated along with the whole reservoir, and we also didn't want the parasitic leaching that the hydraulic pump puts on the engine. So for those of you that don't really understand what that might be, anything that is driven by the motor that isn't the crankshaft will technically take away horsepower. So your water pump, your alternator, power steering, air conditioning, any of those sort of accessories that are directly powered by the harmonic balancer on the front of your engine or powered by any other really way, shape, or form that you could take power from a motor will actually take away horsepower. So this was really not necessarily cheap, but an easy way to do it in the car in a very sort of OEM plus manner. The fact that it bolts right in. We don't really have to do much else outside of wiring in a couple sensors after we deal with installing the brain for the power steering itself. So the rack does have its own electronic control module. Those wires then get routed to the engine bay, it all plugs in, and we're really good to go. Outside of that, we're going to give the rack once over, rebuild the internals a little bit. We did order a rack slider from SHG, So Honda Garage, and we are still waiting on a Tagiwa rack riser. So for a little bit of, I believe it's a 35mm rise to take away all of that stereotypical RSX bump steer that all of us RSX owners know and love. We hate it. Yeah. Really happy to get this in. This is one of those pieces that's been driving me crazy for about the last month, and just to have it sitting on the bench ready for me to tear into is fantastic. So it's been about a week since we got the EP3 power steering rack in, and we've made some decent progress on the car. As you saw in the clips prior, we got the old hydraulic steering rack out, and we've actually gone ahead and converted the entire car to a non-ABS braking set. So you probably saw the little brake proportioning valve, which looks a little bit different than the normal Type S valve. So certain Hondas, mainly Civics, in the early 2000s actually did have non-ABS setups. So we got really lucky to have a whole ABS system delete that actually uses all OEM Honda parts. So the hard lines, the brake proportioning valves, and some of the components that are already from the RSX themselves that can actually stay in place. So we're keeping the brake master and brake booster for obvious reasons. But all the hard lines that go to and from the ABS module have all been removed in lieu of one line going to the passenger side. And it really cleans up the engine bay, gives us a lot of space on the passenger side. And on top of that, yeah, it's just been a waiting game again. So we did get in our SHG rack slider, which is a fantastically small little piece that I feel is going to make a pretty good difference based on what I've been reading and what some friends have been telling me too for their own track builds. We're still waiting on the Tagiwa rack riser. That should be coming in tomorrow, which is Friday, mid-October. If it doesn't come tomorrow, probably sometime over the weekend or early next week. You'll probably see the whole rack going together in the next video. and maybe some of the installation stuff. We're still waiting on a few OEM parts for the rack to come in. So we already got the brain for it. We are waiting on the wiring harness and the brackets for the steering rack itself, because the RSX ones that go from the chassis to the rack aren't compatible with the Civic stuff. So we gotta get the Civic stuff. But yeah, that's about it. I think this is where we're gonna end this video. So as usual, thank you guys for sticking around. I really hope you guys are enjoying these videos. Obviously, I enjoy making them. Not much to say outside of that. Subscribe, catch you guys on the next episode, and as usual, feel free to comment if you guys want to see anything specific, want to learn some extra information, and follow us on all our social media platforms to keep up to date. We do post pretty regularly on our Instagram story if you want to see little photos and snippets of the car getting worked on. But yeah, thanks guys. RSX.